We're back for another episode of Creative Retrospective. And my guest for this one is editor-in-chief and founder of The Floor magazine, also a co-founder of the Building Bloc, Ope Oduwole, also known as Ope. Well, I want to start off with you, Ope. If you're a fan of myself and the Vinyl Collective, you might have seen them on a couple of episodes of the Vinyl Collective. I think the first one you was on was the Silk Sonic one, and then you came for the Good Kid, Mad City one. So we have a bit of rapport. We go way back. We go way back.
Some good times as well. Some
Yeah,
very good times.
yeah, it was a good one. Some banging episodes. If you guys want to listen back, it's actually quite a lot of fun, especially the Silk Sonic one. It was almost like
that
2
was
hours.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So what I want to start off with you, Ope, is way back in 2017, where you announced Fillmore's Floor, not The Floor, it's Fillmore's Floor at this time. And it's something that you said that was in the process for a while. It's something you're working on. It wouldn't come out until a year later, but it's like, okay, this is something I have an idea of. And you even said when you was on the Silk Sonic episode, and I think you also said it on another pod that you had with what was her name? I think it's like ReHD or something like that, where she said something, when you said you had the same message of you didn't see a lot of representation in your degree in terms of, for the girls who don't know, Oprah did English and philosophy. So I think you said you came in, there was only like 5 people.
Yeah, there are about five people in our class of 200.
Exactly, and I think you might have been the only black guy or something like that. And
and women, so it's just me.
And I had almost identical experience. Like when I was doing my degree, I was the only black guy. I think there was only like 3 other black girls, and that was it. So I was like, okay. But unlike you, I didn't decide to go and build something from it, which maybe I should have done. You decided to create The Floor. So with that, you said that you felt like there were stories that weren't being told, or you felt like the outside was a bubble. So what stories in particular at that time did you feel like this is the type of stories that need to be kind of put to the forefront first and foremost? What type of stories came to your mind when you were saying that, or when you felt that way?
Just black people championing the spaces that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like there weren't a lot of stories being told in that way. And if it was the case with a lot of people I had around me, it was the case about a lot of people I didn't even know about, for example. So I had a lot of friends who wanted to go into script writing that didn't know where to start, and they had a lot of inspiration behind like the people that they were seeing on the screen and the people that they were like reading scripts from, watching their films, watching TV shows, and they didn't know how to get into it. But I'm looking at them now, and the story that they've been through is amazing, to the point where they're writing scripts now. They're writing scripts for TV. They're writing scripts for films. Same with music as well. I had a lot of friends who wanted to get into music whilst we were at uni, or they were starting off their careers then. And what they've been able to achieve and what they've been able to create now is so inspirational, and just the journey that they've taken to get from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really nice. And I feel like for a lot of these people that are in these positions, they would have loved to have the resources and tools that we're able to access now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the time it's about telling stories or telling people's journeys in a certain way or from a certain angle to make people understand what they're going through, what they've been able to achieve, etc. Is an amazing thing, and it's always something I've wanted to do, like just commentary on black creativity. I'm not going to say black excellence because it's not ridiculous. It's mediocrity. So the black experience. Let's go with the black experience.
Yeah, that's fair. I like, again, someone who kind of did study the arts coming into uni. Did you ever have one of those like lofty dreams coming to you, like, oh, maybe, because for those who don't know, you also write a bit of poetry as well. Like, did you ever feel like, oh, I'm gonna be like an author, I'm gonna be a poet? Did you ever have a bit of that coming in?
I feel like any writer who says they didn't is lying to you. Yeah, like reading, and then I guess coming from that, writing has always been something that I've always done, even from like a kid. Like primary school, I remember the library, sitting in the library, going through those books and stuff like that. So it's always been something that I've held dear to me. I remember I started writing a book at uni.
Okay.
I went back to that last year, and I read the proofs and I laughed so hard. But not essentially at the idea. I really like the idea, and I think I still want to do something with it, actually.
Well, what made you laugh with it?
Oh, just the quality. If I'm not gonna lie to you, the quality.
Yeah.
Um, no, it was just really funny. But at the same time, I'm really happy that I still put something down, like pen to paper,
Mhm.
because, like I said, it's giving me ideas for things I want to do now. So yeah, it's not something that I completely let go of, both in
Yeah.
like the writing space, for like script writing, but also like creative writing, as far as like poetry goes. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm always saying that I'm going to do something with it, and then let's actually see if I do something with it. So
Hey man, well, it's on wax now, so it's out there.
I should have said
So,
anything.
yeah,
Actually, just
it's
scratch the
got that.
last
Man.
5 minutes.
And speaking of like inspiration and writing, so there was an interview you did with Equate Mag in 2020, right? And I think one of the quotes, I have a quote from one of the things you said, and I'm going to ask you a question based on what you said. So you said, I fell in love with literature for all the wrong reasons. Growing up shy and quiet meant that my voice was rarely ever heard, but that didn't mean that there was anything to say. I mean, first I was like, wait, Offa's like one of the most charismatic people I know. What do you mean shy and quiet, first and foremost? And secondly, when you talk about the wrong reasons, and I found it very interesting because I was like, oh, I didn't know, I never really thought. I mean, I did in a sense where you know how a lot of people are like, oh, I need to, stop listening to all this bad music. And then they just pick up a book for a random recommendation for someone they've never heard. And it's like, wait, I mean, there's a bit of a disconnect here. But I mean,
That's
when
how
you're
I
like,
read. That's how I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
exactly, right? Like, I feel like what you take in terms of books is so important as well. But in terms of
Yeah.
the wrong reasons, what do you feel like those reasons were and how's that changed over time?
I think I say the wrong reasons from a personal standpoint, because like I was saying, I was quite shy growing up
Mhm.
and very quiet to the point where it was easier for me to read than it was to talk to people.
Right. Okay.
So that's why I would say the wrong reasons, because as much as it helped me personally, I feel like my personal skills and like interacting with people took a bit of a hit because I was reading so many books. So that's why I was like, for the worst reasons. But
Mm-hmm.
um no, it's like a huge part of me and who I've become and how I've become the person I am. Just that escapism into books. They
Any
let me
favorite
kind of like,
authors at the time? I know you mentioned Michael Mpergo, who was I was also a
yeah,
big fan at the
Me and
time.
Michael Mafogo back in the day.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but growing up, unfortunately, not having the kind of access to black literature that I have now,
Hmm.
I didn't really have that many black authors to look up to.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna say that one of the ones that really stuck out was Benjamin Zephaniah,
Yes.
i.e., one of like the reasons that I do love poetry at the same time as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it wasn't until like a lot later in my life, like a lot later, I'm gonna say like sixth form, that I started
Hmm.
to like actually explore black literature.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my
Yeah.
favorites back then, Michael Mofogo. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my guy.
Yeah. It's funny because like I feel like everyone like black in the UK has that similar experience where it's like I don't think I even it sounds so stupid saying it now, but I don't think I even can even conceives the idea of race when picking up a book. I was just like, oh, just old white men make books. Like I never thought, oh yeah, actually, wait, what happened to all those people kind of making books?
Yo, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's actually crazy when you think about it. And I think that's why something like Noughts and Crosses, when it did hit mainstream, hit so
Mm,
hard because is it the best book in the world? Maybe not, but because it's like, oh well, there's actually someone who's talented at writing. It's the first time we have someone like this. It's like where are the others kind of thing. It's like
mm.
if you never listen to I think if let's say you never listen to hip hop and then the first person you listen to is Drake, it's like, oh wait, actually, like there's people kind of let's say you just listen to like Macklemore and like all that stuff. It's like actually wait, no,
Yeah,
there's a whole other subgenre like there's Griselda and all that stuff. I
yeah,
think that kind of it's kind of like a enlightening experience. Would you say in
for
in
sure,
terms of that?
definitely. And
Yeah.
it's like you said as well, it's definitely from your own perspective and from perception.
Hmm.
If you're, previous to a lot of these experiences before, then you have no reason to like associate so many of the things that we read with race,
Hmm.
because it wasn't until like a lot later and coming back, and it's so funny because we studied it for GCSEs, things
Hmm.
like of Mice and Men. Of
Yes.
course there's the racial element to it, but you don't contextualize it. For me anyway, I didn't
Hmm.
contextualize it. It was very much
Yep.
like I read it at face value. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
studying these things to write down in the exam, but I wasn't
Yes.
seeing how it like parallels or how it correlates to my actual life.
Yep.
So yeah, so it was a really interesting experience. I'm gonna say the book that really did it for me, And it's funny because my dad was trying to get me to read it for years. Um, as I've said, it was gone from my head. Um, what's his name? Nigerian author, very very iconic book, and it's now gone from my head.
I'm not gonna
Oh,
have it.
Chinua Achebe.
Okay.
Things Fall Apart. There we go.
Oh, okay, yeah. Big
Yeah.
book. Obviously, the
Wow,
Roots named
I
the
can't
album
believe
as
that
well.
went from my head.
Yeah,
You can scratch
yeah.
that bit too. The bit
Yeah,
you
no,
said.
yeah. That never happens
Never happened. Never
in the
happened.
memory hole. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah. So
But yeah.
what was it about Things Fall Apart? Sorry.
So it's about this man's life,
Hmm.
and in his life, one of the big things that happens is war. So it's how
Okay.
he deals with it, but also like how he deals with his family structure, how he looks after and raises his son, how he treats his wife, stuff like that. And I think the reason that it contextualized it for me is because it was race, not necessarily compared to whiteness in the way that we see it. Usually, it's in like the
Yeah,
Western world. The fact that it wasn't in the Western world actually made me relate to it a bit more.
yeah,
Because I saw him, yes, as a black person, but as a black person in Nigeria as well, which is really interesting, like contextually. So I didn't see it as like the comparison of like the black experience to the white experience within the Western world. It was more like
hmm
the black experience in general,
yes. Hmm.
which was quite nice. Yeah.
It's very cool. Recommendation for you guys out there. Again, I'm not the biggest book reader. I mean, when I was a kid, I was a huge book reader, but I think
Mm.
after college, everything just, no pun intended,
Pick
everything
up
just
the
fell apart.
books.
Yeah, pick up the books. Pick up the books. I got my Kindle. I definitely read a bit more now, but definitely not a bookworm by any means. But
I hear you. I hear you.
going back to the floor, right? So again, so we announced Fillmore's floor at
Yes.
2015. 2018, it comes out. You have the launch party in Shoreditch, it's sold out. You're here now. It's amazing. So what was I guess what now you're now entering with this website? It wasn't just a magazine at the time, people don't know. The magazine hadn't come just yet. What was you trying to achieve with the website first and foremost?
I think it hasn't really changed. If anything, it's just the angle that we've come at it from has. So the objective before was to create a safe space for black creatives.
Mm.
At the time, it was definitely more of a focus on writers, but a place for black creatives to come and feel comfortable sharing their work and analyzing work and discussing work with like-minded people.
Mhm.
So that's why we had like the poets library. That's why we had the book extracts. Um, and I think we had script work up there as well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so that was the first kind of objective that we had, just to make a safe space and a comfortable space for people to share work.
And who was the initial members? Because I know the team's like 9 people now. And also you and
Mm.
Paul have been working for a long time. Was Paul one of the initial people coming in to speak to us about it?
Yeah, the OGs. So
Mhm.
um it was definitely, so the first person to like join properly was Karen. Shout out to Karen.
Mhm.
Um and she was the one that really had a vision for what the magazine probably is today.
Mhm.
Um she was the one thinking big, if we're keeping it a buck, because I think what I had in mind was something that was more immediate and kind of filled uh you know answered questions immediately,
Right.
whereas there was a bit more deferred success in what
Mhm.
Karen was proposing.
Yeah.
So Karen was one of the OG members. Paula is as well. um I would say Andrea is as well, because we all went to uni together.
Right.
So she joined very early on. I feel like the way that her role is developed has changed,
Mhm.
even like to suit her for the better as well, which is quite cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd say those are the OG members.
And was it a thing where so I guess what I'm trying to get was the idea, was it that you had the idea first and foremost, and then they kind of came as time went on, or was it okay, hey guys, I've got this idea. Do you want to do this with me? Which angle did you take with it?
I think it's different for different people. I think for Karen, it wasn't necessarily like I've got an idea. Here's what it is.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's that she saw that I had an idea, and she was like, "Have you thought of taking it in this direction?"
Right. Okay.
And I was
Yeah.
like, "Ah, now that you mention it."
Mhm.
So I think that's what it was for her. For other members, I think it was more like this is what we're doing.
Mhm.
Actually, I think it's a mixture. I think half the people it's like, this is what we're doing.
Mhm.
Would you like to be involved? And I think the other half is like, I kind of see what you guys are doing.
Let
I'd
me,
also like to be involved.
yeah, like
So, which is nice. I feel like it's a nice balance because,
that's when you know you
yeah.
have a good idea when other people feel engaged with your idea. That's usually a sign of a good thing. Do you know
Hey, I'll take it. Thank you.
what I mean? And then you have the name change, which I always forget because when I was doing my research, I was like, oh yeah, it was called Filmers Floor.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's good.
Yeah. What spurred on the name change actually?
Um, I mean, like I said, my my intentions were a bit more immediate in the beginning.
Right.
So it was very much like Film was Floor was very much like me.
Fair.
Uh, because the name even comes from me looking like the cartoon, do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was very much
Mhm.
so it was very much like a this is the vision that I saw. Whereas I think
Mhm.
when we changed it, it was like, okay, let's be a bit more intentional about the
Right.
direction we're going in.
Mhm.
At the same time, it's far from it just being my project. It's very much a collective, a group project with everyone's
Of
ideas and
course.
everyone's like implementation taking us to where we want to go and where we want to be.
Mhm.
So that's the main change behind the name. Also, people were like, "Who's Fillmore?" And it got a bit annoying explaining it to everybody. So we were like, you know what? Let's just drop it. Let's just drop it. It still works.
Cool. And so we get your first issue in, I think it's just the start of 2019, and it had Jude. I think everyone popular guy. I think Jude Play or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's your first cover. So I kind of want to make this more of like a wider conversation about issues, but I want to start with your first issue, and we can kind of talk about the later ones. So
Cool.
again, I don't know many people who create magazines, but obviously to do issues in terms of like well, I think growing up, I was like, oh yeah, why do they only release like a magazine every like 2-3 months? Like, why can't they just do it like every week, like okay, back? And then I realized how much effort goes into making an actual magazine, especially if it is just you and a few of your guys. Like,
Yeah.
because one
Hey,
thing that's
listen,
good
give me OK Max budget, we'll do it.
exactly right. So like,
We'll
because
make it happen.
you got to secure photography for every
Hmm.
release, you got to secure interviews, and like the magazine has to be readable and interesting, right? So in terms of the very first one, why did you go with someone like Jude at the time? Like, what was your kind of goal with the first one, and how has it kind of slightly changed over time? And then we can kind of get more into the workings and how that works after.
Okay. So you said why Jude? So
Hmm.
Jude basically symbolized and still symbolizes everything that, you know, we are and we're trying to achieve with the magazine.
Hmm.
It was about spotlighting up and coming black talent within the
Hmm.
topics that we explore.
Hmm.
So him being the autobiographer of Stormzy's first book and
Hmm.
um him really telling that story,
Hmm.
I think it fits so well because I get i.e. Stormzy was talking about his come up while Jude was also having his come up with writing this.
Yeah. Hmm.
It was really, I think there was something about the whole situation that was really poetic. Um, and yeah, even the story of like how we reached out to him, it was so different from like how we usually reach out to people. Obviously, it was
Hmm.
like the first time and we didn't really know what we were doing. But I basically researched him, had a look like where I could find him. I found him on LinkedIn. Sent him a
Right.
little connection, little
Hmm.
message on LinkedIn, and he actually got back to us like straight away. And he was always really enthusiastic about what we were doing,
Hmm.
and he still is now, which is like really cool to hear. So yeah.
No. And again, in terms of the inner workings, how, because again, for someone who has done the whole thing of, hey, would you like to take an interview, all that stuff, it could be such a, it's like it could be a grind, essentially. You know what I mean? Especially if you're doing it again, or the feature of your product is interviews or is having people come on, and especially
Mm.
if you get a big feature one magazine, it's like okay, the next one's gonna be just as big or bigger and all that stuff. What without giving the game away, what is your process in terms of like securing these articles? You've had like obviously people like Shea Universe most recently, you've had Face in the News, you've had DLT, No Signal, Shady Poppy, all that stuff. So like, yeah. So what is the floor's kind of methodology in terms of securing these views and the themes that you curate around these magazines, which I think is quite cool as well.
Thank you. So we usually do themes for our print issues because we can
Yeah.
curate it a lot better in terms of like how we create that theme, what goes into
Mhm.
making that theme. When it comes to our digital covers, I'd say it's about spotlighting, like almost in that same kind of objective that I was talking about before in terms of like
Mhm.
spotlighting up and coming black talent.
Mm.
But it's nice to put like a special kind of spotlight on something that's recent but also relevant to the culture.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've always tried to do. Not and when we say it, we try to do it in a broad sense, which is why it's not just talent from the UK or talent from the US. We also have
Mm.
loads of talent that we featured across Africa,
Yeah.
loads of talent that we featured across mainland Europe as well.
Hmm.
Just as long as they like fit that criteria. So it's really nice to use the issues to spotlight what we personally also think is cool, because
Hmm. Of
we we
course.
don't we don't take away from like you know ourselves also being part of the culture. We're very
Yeah.
much like studying what's going on, but we are also
Hmm.
experiencing it at the same time.
Hmm.
So there is a lot of like, I would say a lot. There is some bias in terms of like, oh, we think this person's cool.
Yeah.
Um, so then that's why they're there as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's also people making like big contributions to pushing forward like the sound when it comes to music, pushing the envelope and the boundary when it comes to acting, when it comes to directing, when it comes to writing, even down to like editing. And
Hmm.
um I think that's another thing that we've tried to encompass. Kind of not just looking one dimensional. When you have like when you think about literature, for example, is it just the writers? It's like no, it's the talent that goes behind like publishing the book. It's the editors as well and stuff like that. And that's
Hmm.
same for like theater. Like it's the casting directors, it's the directors as well. It's the runners. And I think that's what we tried to showcase when we did the No Signal cover, because we did the behind the scenes. So it was like
Yeah.
the radio producers, the social media managers, and um yeah. So I think we tried to look at the topics holistically,
Right.
and everyone kind of like encompassed in it, um, and try and put that on display and tell their story the best way possible.
Yeah. And you mentioned that in terms of physical copies. So one thing I noticed was like, I think coming out the gate, there was quite a few physical copies coming out. And then I think the 2-year anniversary for your seventh issue was like a couple of weeks ago. And I think again, it would be kind of good to explain, was it a thing of like, okay, you know what, like these are kind of special, super special editions that are gonna come out as and when, or is it okay, we're gonna pivot more to a digital model because I guess you can get more months out as you do that. You don't have to wait, 3-4 months for the Flow magazine to kind of give a buzz, or is it a mixture too? Like, yeah, shed some light on that first.
Yeah, I'd say it's a mixture. Um, I think we came out the gate swinging because we were so excited and we just wanted to get it done.
Mm.
I think the beautiful thing about what we've done and how we've done it is that we've grown as we've worked.
Hmm.
So when we look at our first issue, I mean, we were going through some stuff in my apartment the other day, so we found like some of our old issues and we were
Hmm.
going through them and looking at it from a quality perspective, from the materials used to print, like what kind
Hmm.
of paper we're printing on, like the weight of the
Yeah.
paper, like the glossy material, like stuff like that. It all matters, and it
Hmm.
all like influences the reader in a sort of way, and like adds to their experience or even subtracts from it in
Yeah.
some cases.
Yeah.
So looking at it, it's just like, wow, we've come such a long way. But because we've learned on the job quite a lot, we were always looking to strive in terms of making improvements.
Yeah.
And with making those improvements, of course, comes more costs a lot of the time.
Class. Yeah.
So to produce what we know that we're now capable of is something that we can't do on a regular basis at this moment in
Yeah.
time.
Of course.
But it is something that we enjoy doing, and it's something that our readers enjoy as well. I didn't
Hmm.
know how much people like really actually like the print issues.
No.
So yeah, so we try and keep them special by doing them well and doing them like properly. So that might just mean that we don't get to do them like as frequently as we'd like to, for now at least.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite issue, digital or physical, or one where you're like, oh, like for example, because you're getting lots of
Ooh,
like a lot of big artists in the room, is there one you're most nervous for? Like, which one is most noticeable for Fair?
that's a good question. Um, I think they'd vary for different reasons. Um, if I'm thinking print issues, one of the print issues I think for me that means quite a lot is the Cat Burns social media one.
Yeah,
I
I
think it
really like
means a
that
lot.
cover, by the way.
Ah, thank you. Shout
Yeah,
out to Paula, man. She's a
yeah.
fantastic girl. Um, I think one of the reasons it sticks out to me is
Mm,
because I think up until then, the processes that we were trying to put together to create a magazine on a regular basis was still forming.
yeah.
We were still putting a lot of the things together, a lot of the like cogs we're still piecing in and kind of perfecting that process of putting something like that together.
Mhm,
And it feels like during that whole process with the shoots, the interviews, working with the talent, even down to like shoot locations and like how well the teams just
mhm,
gelled for like the different shoot days and stuff like that, as well as the interview content. I think it just came together in a way that I knew that we were prepared to like move forward and move on. I think that's always like such a hard thing to tell,
mhm,
or it can be a hard thing to tell. So I think it was
mhm.
one of the easiest points in this journey where I've been like, you know what, we've really achieved what we want to achieve here.
Because,
Um, yeah, even down to like the rollout and how we had the party with it, and
mm,
yeah, like everything just clicked in that moment. And I was really happy about that moment. So I think that's what stands out to me. And I was like, I just looked back and I was just like super proud of everyone involved. So
but
yeah, I say that's the one that stood out for me.
cool. And again, during this time of I guess peak creation, everything's flowing through. You know, like every other creative in the land, there's no shame in it. Decide to start a podcast, don't you? Like, you know, let's make a podcast. Everyone does it. We've all been there. We've all been there. I understand. So we
Oh
have the
no.
playback pods, the legendary playback pod with you, Paula, and Kay. And that this went on for quite some time. It wasn't one of those like, oh, we do 10 episodes and get bored. You know, we're really going for like quite a few episodes.
Yo, do
So
you know what's so funny? Everyone thinks it was for them. We made that podcast for us. People thought, yeah, like they're putting down an episode. It's like, nah, we just ran over with some conversations. There was a mic on. We're so sorry.
and that's how some of them really felt because I think there was even some of these episodes where it was like nothing crazy was I think it was like oh yeah when we took an edible together I'm like wait what like this is a podcast like what the hell well I mean I made it very authentic like do you know what I mean? It was super fun so
Yeah.
what was the idea was it okay you know what we're already engaged in the creative arts. Let's just, you know, this might not necessarily fit on what we're doing at the floor. Let's just kind of have an open space where we can kind of be a bit more loose with it. Like, what was the idea behind the playback
Yeah,
book?
that's it. That's exactly it. I think we all the great thing about even working with like your friends in the first place is that it falls into natural conversation a lot,
Yeah.
just in terms of like whatever you're discussing, whatever you're talking about, natural
Mm-hmm.
conversation will come around it and natural commentary will come around it. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you're part of a friendship group, the characters are about to jump out
Yeah.
when it comes to stuff like that. So we realized that a lot of the opinions we had didn't necessarily fit our platform, especially when it is
Yeah.
that we are looking to become like a credible source, and like we are now a credible source in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like what we comment on.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some of the comments should be left at home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But
Yeah,
leaving them at home doesn't mean that they shouldn't be said at the
of
same time.
course.
So I think it was just like splitting that space where we were allowed to be off the clock, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, it just got funny. And we were like, in like you said, in true millennial fashion, we were like, someone needs to hear this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just started from there. But yeah, no, honestly, like even every time we were together like a couple weeks ago. And and we just talk about the podcast all the time. Like we'll even go back and listen to it just for
Oh,
ourselves rather
yeah.
than like because it was never. I'm sorry, it was never for other people. I'm glad that other people enjoyed it. It means a
No.
lot to us, but it was for us. Those weekly shows were like therapy for us, man.
I don't know if you've watched BoJack Horseman, right? But I always say, like, when I listen to old episodes of like my podcast, it feels like I'm watching Horsing Around. It was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, it really
that's
does.
really it.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. I'm like, oh yeah, the good old day. And I'm like,
The
oh
good
yeah,
old
that was
days
actually a
for
good.
real.
Yeah, and you know when like BoJack is kind of like quoting like, oh, that was a good line and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel sometimes
Yeah,
when
no,
I'm
for real. I was
listening
like, that's a
back.
good take. Whoever said
Yeah,
that,
no,
whoever said that, I agree.
I made I take that one. I take that one. So yeah. Yeah, so I'm guessing like, wait, why don't we not have that today? Is it just a thing of, you know what, we guys said we want to say, maybe we'll come back when we feel like it. Like, yeah, what's the current status?
Yeah, there's no pressure. I feel like every time we're together, especially like in a space where we have like our friends, one of the questions is always, "So when are you guys coming back?"
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like we had a lot to say back then. Not that we don't have a lot
Mm-hmm.
to say anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, man, we're busy.
I hear
We're so
it.
busy, but I feel like one day we're randomly gonna do it because there was one time.
Okay.
When was it? It was for Renaissance when Renaissance came out.
Right, yeah.
Um,
I can imagine
it-
that being a big episode.
yeah. So we just started talking about it. We were in my apartment. We were just started talking about it. And we were like, you know what? Let's get the mics right now. Let's keep talking. So we did. We kept talking, and then it came to like editing, and we're like, who's gonna edit it? And we were just all three of us were just looking at each other.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, so I've still got the recording. Just nothing's been done with it.
Oh
So yeah,
man.
we'll see. I feel like at some point, something will happen. But when that point is, I have no idea.
Of course, of course. And like when you say you're a busy man, it's very true because we get to 2020. Again, before a small global event happened, you decided to expand the network of the floor with a book club, right? And I think that your first book was like by Ori, someone I can't remember her name, but it was I think it was just at the start of January, if I'm not mistaken. So you have these book clubs. Or was it July? No, it was during COVID, I believe. And then you had like your live discussions like the month after or something like
Oh,
that.
yep.
Yeah. So what was the idea? So in terms of expanding, obviously now you have your love for books, so it makes sense in terms of expanding the network. But when now that you have people actually coming together for you and for your platform, what's that feeling like? Like why start with books? Why not films? I know some people do like film parties. Like why books in particular for the floor?
I think that period of time was really experimental for us
Hmm.
because no one knew what the hell was going on.
Hmm.
So I think it was kind of opportunity to just do what we want and see what sticks. And one of the things that we really wanted to do was properly build that community. We've always had like people around us and people that have like vouched for us and bought into us in terms of support. But in terms of making like a full-fledged community or at least like carving out space for there to be a full-fledged community was something that we hadn't done. And something that we wanted to do. So that's why we're doing things like obviously like the book club.
Yeah.
That's around the same time that we started the show Super Album, which started like on
Yes.
our Instagram before it went to No Signal.
Oh, you
Um,
guys started that, right? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So it started on Instagram before we
Hmm.
moved to No Signal. So yeah, so we were really trying to build like community at the time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and that's kind of where the idea came from. It was always in the works to kind of do something like that, but it was just about timing and resources and things like that. So yeah, we got to the stage where we were like, you know what, I think this would work really well. And with everyone kind of being at home and wanting to discuss things a lot more, I think everyone became some sort of critic during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah. For
What
sure.
that's on is a different story, but everyone had like an opinion on something.
Hmm.
So so yeah, so a lot of attention was turned to literature and books, and we started to get a lot of people asking more about like things that we covered in terms of reviews or commentary on books or thematic articles, for example, and think pieces around literature. Um, so we were like, you know what, instead of kind of segregating the readership and the direction that people are going in terms of how they're interacting with our literature work, like let's bring them all together in one way, shape, or form. And that's when we did the book club.
And in terms of, like you said, in terms of trying new things, I want to ask whose idea with it? Because again, I don't know if I've personally heard of this before. I could be wrong, but whose idea was it to create R&B yoga? 'Cause I think that's a concept I've never come across before.
I might get this wrong, I think it was Andrea. Shout out to
Okay.
Andrea. Who is our she's one of the OGs, like I mentioned.
Hmm.
She's the events manager. So all of the events that you see come from us,
Hmm.
she has a hand in like in curating the idea and in terms of making the idea come to life and making that day run smoothly. No, she's amazing. So I think the idea came from her. We again we're in that space of like community building.
Hmm.
Um we know we have a lot of people that like what we do. I think it's just about building experiences that they also want to see
Hmm.
while seeing us. We didn't want it to all come from us, and I think a lot of input came to like experiences. Um, so we were like, how can we still tie in what we do to like these experiences that people wanna be interacting with? I think everyone's a little bit tired of the party, even though everyone's in the party every week, but we're all
Hmm.
still a little bit tired of the party.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I think it came from like wanting experiences and tying in what we do and how can we make it authentic to us rather than us
Hmm.
just trying to be like, here's an experience, like
Yeah.
do it, please give us the
Yeah.
money.
Oh God.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Mm,
So she has a lot of cool ideas actually.
mm,
A lot of the stuff we do in terms of events comes from her. I mean, we try and pitch everyone's ideas that comes into it, but a lot of it does come through her. So for R&B yoga, I think when she suggested it, we were like, wow, okay, like this is something we definitely need to do. So we did the first one as like a tester a couple years ago actually,
mhm.
and it went really really well.
Yeah, it's
We
in
had like
Greenwich
a
or something like that, right?
yeah in
Trinity Laban or something.
yeah, sure. Yeah. Look at you doing your research. That's what's up. Yeah. We had it in that
Mm,
area, and it went really
mm.
well in terms of who came. I think I couldn't even be there because I remember it was for International Women's Month, so it was women of
Fair
non-binary
enough. Fair
attendance.
enough. Yeah.
So I was calling like, yeah, just let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes.
Mm,
But it went really well. The turnout was really good, and a lot of people were asking like, "Yo, when's the next one?" So
mhm,
uh, we tried to use that as our case study basically and build on the experience from there.
mhm.
So we had another one. How long has it been? Maybe like a month ago now,
Yeah.
and it was really really good. So
Mhm,
yeah, it's an experience. I think we just want to keep like adding on to, making it more enjoyable for people.
mhm,
Taking to taking into consideration people's opinions and views on it as well, because it means a lot in terms of like sculpting it and making it what we know it can be. So yeah, so
yeah.
that's R&B yoga. It
Yeah.
was fun as well. Like I got involved.
I see. I want to get involved as well. I know people always have that stigma of like men doing like Pilates and yoga. Look, don't shit on these things unless you try it because these things are not
Yo,
easy to do. I'll tell you that. I'll
yo,
tell you that for real.
when I tell you I'm a convert when it comes to reformers Pilates,
Yep, same. For
yo,
real. Yeah.
I've never shook so much in my life.
Yeah. Honestly, especially for a guy, I don't know what it is. It's just body parts or stretches you would never do. And like, yeah, it really
Yeah,
tests you for sure.
maybe in terms of like strength, but we had like I
Mm,
feel like men have such bad like conditioning when it comes to lower body.
yeah. And flexibility in general.
Yeah. Oh,
You know.
facts. Could
Yeah.
I touch my toes? Anyway.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
it's nice because there were some guys that got involved in the
Hmm.
last sessions we had. We had two sessions on the same day, so we had
Hmm.
men in both classes, which was really nice to see.
Nice.
And I've had quite a few like guys message me
Hmm.
quietly and
Hmm.
be like, yeah, they wanna get involved, and if it's something they didn't even know if they were allowed to get involved, for example. So
Right, of
it's
course.
about
Yeah.
that accessibility. But I think it's gonna grow naturally, which is actually really nice. So the
Of
people that
course.
really want to be there will be there.
And all the things that the floor are kind of expanded into. I know this was like late November during COVID. You guys did a virtual festival. I think you teamed up with SDS Entertainment, did the BOP, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like a natural progression for you guys in terms of you guys being such lovers of music, film, and stuff like that. I feel like in terms of the production side, would the floor ever try their hand at doing like a mini fest at some point? Is that something that would be possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've definitely thought about. But I feel like there's so much that we want to expand into and so much we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it even comes back to what you were saying with the initial site when you asked about the initial site and what it looked like. I don't even know if I answered that properly.
That's
But
all good. It's all good.
one of the things that we want to do with that site is make it as like multidisciplinary as possible because there
Yeah.
are so many interests that we as a team are interested in personally.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many interests of the readers that we have. I think we understand one that the black experience isn't a monolith,
Yes.
and that people in general are very varied and have so many different experiences and so many different interests that shape them. And we don't want to limit that in terms of what people can explore through the platform and through the magazine. Um, so coming back to what I was saying, which
Yeah.
was I'm always forgetting stuff, man.
No, it's all
I
good.
don't think we've ever had like a conversation slash interview
No,
where I have
I mean
more
this is
time.
what I was meant to say. Don't worry, it's my job. Don't worry. But yo, you were talking about in terms of the festivals, right? Will the floor ever
Yes.
have their hand at that festival?
Yes, thank you very much. So making something again, in terms of curating the stage for that day and curating in that way and making it, almost because one thing we were trying to do with that was to make it like multi-genre. Of course, there were different singers and different performers, but they all varied in very different ways.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so I think it is something that we've thought about. But like I said, there are so many other things in the pipeline, with so many things we want to do. Who knows when it's something we'll get to? Who knows?
Well,
It might be next week.
who knows?
It
Yeah,
might be next year. But
maybe.
yeah, no, it's something that we definitely thought about and definitely like toyed with the idea of. So we'll see.
Cool. And with the floor kind of gaining notoriety across the years, right? Because it'll be 7 years this year, which is insane. But
Yeah,
so,
it's
but
nuts.
last year, you guys kind of went to the red carpet, and there was two moments that I want to discuss with you. I think one I'm going to save put to the side just now. The first one I want to talk about is Zack Snyder's film Rebel Moon, when you guys were there. I don't know if you were there
Yes.
particularly, but
No, it wasn't me, but yeah.
how did that opportunity for the floor come about? So, we want you guys kind of be Zack Snyder's a huge director, right? Obviously, so how does this opportunity come for the floor, and how does it make you feel?
Definitely very proud. Definitely very proud, especially because, like I said, a lot of the work to get to these points is done by people in the team. It's nice to see what they're working towards coming to fruition.
Mhm,
Um, so stuff like that. A lot of the appearances, a lot of our carpet appearances, a lot of the
mhm,
talent appearances where we're at events, definitely comes through Sabrina. Shout out Sabrina, who is the senior literature editor
mhm.
and visuals editor on the Meg. Um, and just how she's someone who's kind of propelled her position within the industry, within like that TV, film, entertainment, literature as well, within that space. And a lot of the things that we do come from, how well connected she is and how well suited she is to placing opportunities in front of us, or the right ones, for example.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, so I think that's how it came about. Like I think she's very, well in touch with a lot of the PRs that do a lot of the screenings and things like that. So it's nice that we get access to a lot of the people that we want to speak with, but also it's really nice to be invited to these things as well. So I think it's a mixture of hustling, I guess, of grinding to get to that point, but also the kind of acknowledgement that hey, like you should come and take up space here as well. It's also a really nice feeling.
cool. And the second red carpet that you was on off here, and it was for a TV show, Mr. Well, it's like a TV show remake of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And the reason
Yes.
why, then when I saw this, it when something just makes sense, like in me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like because as humans, we try to like put people into boxes or kind of say, okay, I know this person, this person's wearing like a Russian hat, he listens to Tyler the Creator, like for sure, like whatever, like you can kind of assume where people's inspirations come from, right? But
Yeah.
then the moment I saw you interviewing Gambino, I was like, that makes complete sense. And I say this because when I think of the floor and the things you do in terms of like, I feel like the parallels between you and Gambino or Donald Glover are so apparent in terms of he seems like someone, he's not just a rapper. He's not just that. He just wants to kind of express whatever creative endeavors in him at that time and explore it and be given enough freedom to explore that to whatever extent he wants to explore. I think that's why he's kind of like an independent guy. Doesn't really work with a lot of people because I feel like he's so headstrong in terms of, okay, no, I don't want to drop 3 albums and someone's telling me, oh, you're just a rapper. Like I can make plays and because the internet happened, because of stuff like that, right? And I feel like that's kind of you as well. Like, yeah, Oppa doesn't just do poems. He likes R&B as well. He likes hip hop as well. He likes writing as well. Like he likes being behind the scenes in terms of orchestrating and directing as well. So again, it does seem like your kind of inspirations of creation stems a lot from Gambino. So it kind of felt like when you two did meet at that time, it felt like a full circle moment. Also, I don't want to speak for you, but it did give off that vibe. What would you say to
Damn, you have me pat down so well. I mean,
it?
wait, hold on. Sorry, what's it? I don't know if that made any sort of difference.
No, it's all right. So quiet. So quiet. So good, mate.
Okay, cool. Um, yeah, definitely. I definitely got like a lot of inspiration from him in terms of creation, in terms of not limiting the avenues to take with creation.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and that was just a big like. I think that interview was done again. It went on the magazine, it went on the website, but it
Mhm.
was done for me. I'm not gonna lie, that was for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it did really feel like a full circle moment because the childhood me at like 15 that was like listening to his music. was very, very happy. Um,
Yeah.
and it was nice to be able to, those people where you're always like, oh, I wish I could ask them a question about this or that.
Mhm,
It's kind of nice that, fair enough, I didn't get to ask a lot of the questions I wanted to,
mhm,
but even asking some of the ones that I did helped me kind of shape, some thinking or reasoning behind a lot of the questions I did have in
mhm,
terms of like his creation or his creational process. Um, so yeah, no, it was really nice. I was trying
mhm.
not to show it too much, but damn, you really read that one. So
No, it's just one of those ones where like I'm like, oh no, like this it's just something that just clicks, right? Like, oh no, he gives me a lot of the vibes that Ofe gives me in that sense, you know. And where you said, were you able to kind of have a conversation with him off camera, or was it like, oh, busy, I'm on the red carpet, kind of like in and out,
it
like,
was quite busy, man. He was in
yeah,
and out. I mean, like
yeah,
we had like a little like 30-second like chinwag, but
yeah.
that's pretty much it. Like outside of it,
Mm. Cool. So the next endeavor again, this was shortly before the Gambino interview kind of came out or was released to us. Another thing that you kind of started, and this is quite interesting because the floor mag exists, right? So you have the Building Bloc, which is something you partnered up with. Can't remember the name of the guy you partnered up with, but it's a more,
Shay.
yeah, Shay. And this is for more sports and entertainment rather than I guess floor which kind of marks on it is entertainment, but a different avenue of entertainment because I guess this seems more like person focused rather than genre or media focused.
Mm.
What was the idea with the Building Bloc? Why start the building again? Why not incorporate this and just be like the floor mag sports? Why is it its own separate entity in its entirety?
Um, I think being authentic is a very, you know, important thing, especially when you're dealing
Mm-hmm,
with something as delicate as, being behind the guise of doing it for a certain group.
mm-hmm,
So, for example, with the magazine, it's very much for uplifting Black people in those spaces, and the reason it is that is because that's authentically the idea that we had in the beginning, and it's what we've
mm-hmm,
run with and run behind since.
mm-hmm,
Um, the building block didn't really come up that way, and although there were thoughts as in like possibly is this something that can be conjoined with the floor or like come underneath it, it didn't feel right to do it, because we're not necessarily fighting for the same things, or we don't have the same objectives or the same like end goals.
mm-hmm.
Although I would say that uplifting Black people and their stories or telling the narratives of Black people, I feel like that's just ingrained in me. I feel like any type of work that I'm gonna do moving forward, that's always gonna be some kind of subtext.
Of course.
Um, so yeah, so that's the reason it was kind of separate. As to why we did it in the first place,
Yeah.
I think I was just sitting down with a friend and we were just talking about things that we're both interested in and things that we dislike, like 9 to 5 jobs. Uh, and I think it just came from a conversation, in terms of, why aren't things being told the way we'd like them to, and the things that we're interested in, i.e., like sports.
Right.
Um, why isn't the representation there? Why isn't the strategy there behind that advert, for example, or behind that rollout, or behind that campaign? Um, why is nothing being done with Black athletes in this sport or in this country and stuff like that? So I think we kind of wanted to look at it as I had a lot of creative ideas and he has a lot of like business acumen. And in spaces that we're both interested in, what is it that we can do to like fix problems or make things a little bit better
Yeah.
or move towards something? And that's essentially how the building block came into play.
And talk about full circle moments again, right? So, for those who don't know, like Charlton Athletics Football is probably what I would consider like I guess like a hometown stadium for you, right? So to be able to do a video for was it Chuck's Aneke or something like that?
Yeah,
And there was the
yeah,
other one with Dan and season before. This must be crazy, right? It's like I might go past the stadium every week or so, and now I actually have a video of one of the football players from there. They wanted me to kind of document their story. Like, how did that opportunity come about? That sounds crazy.
oh man, the opportunity came about in such a way that made it feel like, you know what? You know those moments that kind of make you feel like, you know what, I'm on the right path in terms of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the way that it came to us. We were in touch with a lot of people that, ended up joining the club at the same time we started making a lot of these proposals and pitches. And I think them seeing what we had to offer, especially in the position that we're in terms of us working with quite a few clients, but clients that don't necessarily relate to what they're doing or what they're trying to
Right.
achieve.
Mm.
So I think having someone that's come in and seen our work before and seen, almost how that they can vouch for us was something that went a really long way. And I think once we got our foot in the door, it was just about showing, what we're capable of and the ideas that we have and basically breaking them down and how we're going to do it. I think it came as a shock to them as well. One of the great things behind, how we pitched, I guess, and how we did what we did with them, or how the partnership came about, was because we led with the fact that we're from the community that we're trying to reach out to.
Right.
Um, so again, a big thing um, in terms of it being genuine and authentic.
Yeah.
We're talking about things that we would have liked to see from the community, or things we'd like to see as a part of the community from the football club, not necessarily this is what we'll do with the football club.
Yeah.
So striking that balance was something that was really important for us and something that we're still doing, because we're still in partnership with them. So yeah, and continue to do really.
And is it a different approach you have to take when managing, I guess, athletes? Also, I think one of them was a boxer, now you have the footballer. Is it very different to, all right, Shea Universe is indoor? Is it more okay? Is it like what type of approach you have to take, or is it completely different?
I don't think it's completely different because I think the thing that leads first with all of these interactions is people skills.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it's about understanding, I guess, a need that people have,
Hmm.
even down to like an individual level, like on the day, making sure they're good, like the things are in their rider, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, it's down to stuff like that, but then also like, like just talking to people like they're people. I think a lot of
Yeah.
like talent get annoyed at the fact that, they're seen as other than, when they're
Yeah.
really just the same person as.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I think the best interactions have always come from just being yourself and just chilling with people the same way that you chill with your friends or just like a random person that you've met. Um, so I don't think it's different in that respect. I do think the industries are vastly different in terms of like music, for example, and sports. There are a lot of similarities in terms of how the talent is treated, but
Yes.
in terms of the industries that encompass or encase those talents themselves,
Yeah.
I think music is a lot. I think they're both very structured, but
Hmm.
structure doesn't necessarily mean strict. I think music's not as strict, but sports is very regimented in terms of
Yes.
like how
Yeah.
things run.
Hmm.
Um, which I guess it has to be when it comes down to things like weekly fixtures and training and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Whereas music has the tendency to be a bit more fluid, which it can be
Hmm.
because it has the space to be.
Yeah.
But the regimented nature of sports was something that we had to get used to, and something we had to get used to quickly.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so they vary a lot, um, and even the way that we work within the different sectors varies as well. I think, oh, I think there's a lot more planning that goes into it. I guess coming from the regimented side as well, but there's a lot that will plan like years and ahead.
Uh-huh.
Wow, years in advance, for example.
Hmm.
When it comes to, well, I'm trying not to get in trouble, so I'm not trying to
Of
say.
course. Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah, but like there are things with like football clubs that have to be planned like years in advance. Um, even things that you don't necessarily think of as like important,
Mm.
they're important to the club in terms of like optics and aesthetics and how things run. And if this person's happy, then it triggers an event where this person's happy and things like that. So um, I think I just really saw the business side of sports in a way that I was only privy, I guess, to the advertising and marketing side because of my experience. So seeing more of the business end of things was very eye opening, and a valuable experience as well.
For sure. For sure. And getting to the final third of the interview now, what is next for off air and what is next for the floor?
Ooh. For me, I definitely want to do more things creatively as an individual. I
Hmm.
think um I've given a lot of time to business ventures like the Building Bloc and the Floor. Not in a way that I regret, in a way that
Of
I'm actually
course.
very proud of, and I'm
Hmm.
very happy that I've done so. But I do feel like my personal ventures have taken a bit of a backseat.
Hmm.
I like the writing I was talking to you about before,
Hmm.
and the fact that I'll write for other publications, but not on a regular basis. It's
Right.
something I'd want to do a bit more because I would say that I'm not just opinionated when it comes to like music
Hmm.
or creative arts. Like
Hmm.
there's other random stuff I'd love to write about. There's
Of
stuff that I'd
course.
like
Yeah.
to write about that doesn't necessarily fit into how the floor covers things or and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think a lot more from me personally, creatively, is something that I want to explore. And then for the floor, there's a lot coming up in terms of events and activations around experiences as well. Um, we're definitely trying to be a bit more intentional in terms of the direction we're going in and making sure that our readers and customer base are kind of like aligned or
Hmm.
consumer base are aligned in that way.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that's what's coming. Some really fun stuff there. Some really, really fun stuff. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
excited.
Okay. We're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. At the end of the interview, do you have any final messages? Is there anyone you would like to shout or say hello to?
Ooh, I'm gonna be like Lenny Henry on that when he's reading off the
Oh
home.
yeah. Yeah.
Just bare names.
Mm.
Okay, no, I won't do that to you.
No, that's all good. It's all
I
good.
feel like shout out to the team, Flow Mag team, every single time. Um, I think it's been an amazing year for us, and this we're not even halfway. We got a nomination, which I'm really proud of, and I think,
Yes.
like I said, I
Congrats.
think it comes down to the team and like how well people have really just stepped into like their roles and the responsibility that comes with it. So shout out
Mm.
to them like every single time. Shout out to Paula as well. She won an award
Yeah.
at that same
Mhm.
show. Shout out to Shay, obviously, Building Block. Again, I feel like it's enabled me to kind of like access a part of me creatively that I couldn't before with the Meg.
Mhm.
So I'm really pleased about that. I feel like it's given me a lot more purpose outside of just this one other thing that I have. So
Yeah.
that's been really nice as well. Um, ooh, now I feel like I'm on the spot in terms of shout
No,
outs.
no, it's all good. No, it's all good.
Nah, I feel like just those two is like
Yeah.
way more than enough. So
Yeah.
shout out to
Well,
them, man, bro.
no worries. Thank you for coming on. It's good to have
Thank
you.
you for having me.